Welcome to Open Door. We're talking with Honey Bell-Bey. She is the Poet Laureate of Cuyahoga County, and she is doing great things in a very short period of time. I have encountered Honey Bell-Bey on several occasions through her work with the distinguished gentleman of the spoken word, and I have acknowledged her as a poet. She's been a feature at Larchmere Arts, but right now it's my pleasure and my honor to welcome her to Open Door Cleveland. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
And I'm honored to have you. So we can talk about your life in general and give you and the audience an opportunity to get to know you. But you are the Poet Laureate of Cuyahoga County, and that's a very recent thing that has happened. So tell us what led up to you becoming the Poet Laureate of Cuyahoga County.
I always always admired Dr. Maya Angelou and her legacy and the footsteps that she left. So the notion that I was in a city that did not have a poet laureate was always something that I wanted to tackle, always something that I wanted to see addressed. And how do you set the platform for that to happen? So for maybe 10 years, I've always presented the idea to the city about how we make that happen, and was met with some confusion in some places about the necessity of it. And so 2020 just seemed like a time where you could go out and address the need for it to happen beyond me. But how do you ensure that this county, which encompasses the city of Cleveland, would have a poet laureate long after me? So the overarching goal was to make sure that I could help to start something that would live long beyond me. So that was the real piece of it. How do I set the rubric? So the challenge or the beauty of being this poet laureate is that I get the opportunity to set the rubric for how poet laureates after me come about.
Okay, so you're the first in the history of this county?
First, the county actually had another poet laureate about 16 years ago, but I am the first formal, if you will, sworn in poet laureate, certainly, which would make me the first African American, the first woman, but there was one before me.
Mm-hmm. And that person was in place for, I'd have to assume, a relatively short period of time. I'm just wondering why there was a gap between when that person was in place and when you materialized.
I would imagine it was a short period of time, which is why I'm excited to set a rubric and a standard for what that looks like, so that there's never a gap again in understanding the power and the importance of poetry, of literature, of performing arts, of art, period, in such a vibrant city like Cleveland. I know how important this role is.
Mm-hmm. And you've demonstrated that with what you've done with those young men who have virtually traveled the world doing what they do. What do you hope to accomplish? What can you accomplish as a poet laureate?
Well, I think, the number one thing that it does, or it has been doing so far, is it really brings attention to poetry. We are so siloed. We're all doing such fabulous work in this city. There's a billion poets, but there's silos of us. So I hope to create mechanisms that, just kind of open up these gateways and these highways for us to communicate, and not just communicate through performance, but communicate through the real healing power of poetry. How do we do that where the underground poets, the people who we don't know, the people who are not coming to the open mics, but they may write and they see the power of that healing. How do we get to them and provide these formats where you can really heal through these words that you're writing? That's really my goal. How do you use this as a tool to heal?
Yes. Speaking as a poet and also being aware of a current movement to empower poets and other artists in the city, I think that it's so important for us to have these conversations, particularly as you brought up the whole idea of healing, artists being part of the healing mechanism. Weeks ago, the city of Cleveland passed a resolution or some type of an acknowledgement that racism is a public health crisis. And artists have an ability to deal with racism head on because we speak to it. We allow others to, have some type of a therapeutic response to what we do. So I'm just seeing how important it is for artists to be engaged. And the thought that you represent an aspect of our county's government is very encouraging. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I think when I was told that the vote for me to be the poet laureate was unanimous, I was overwhelmed. I think that God knew that we would face the type of year with the racial tension that has always been prevalent in this country. It's nothing new, but that we would face this rebirth like nothing I have ever seen in my life. I've never seen this moment that I'm in. So I think to have this opportunity where I'm seeing what I've never saw, but to have this opportunity to be a part of a movement, all the movements that I wasn't jealous. I'm happy I was born in this time, but a little, I'd sit and wonder, what was it like for Zora Neale and Langston Hughes to be in the same space, this Harlem Renaissance? What was that like? What was it like in the civil rights to fight with what you had, your art and your voice? What was that like? So now we're in this time, this revolution, this rebirth, and we have that same opportunity to use our voices through all types of art, but in my case, through poetry. So yeah, I think you are absolutely right. A time like never before for the poets to do what James Baldwin talked about, to stand up, because the voice of the poets is the voice that will be heard.
Yes. And one of the things that I've always appreciated about poetry is the immediacy of it. You don't need a microphone, you don't need a stage, you don't need a venue. You could stand on a street corner and you can have an audience. You don't have to have a recording contract. You don't have to have fame or fortune. You have a voice. You have an ability to use it and to reach folk. And that's one of the reasons that, doing what I've been doing in terms of hosting open mic and featured poets over the years has been so rewarding, because you get to hear all these voices and you provide a platform for them to express ideas that they can share with others. What was the beginning of your fascination or your interest in poetry?
Two pieces. The very first piece, I can remember now being a little person holding an American flag taller than myself on stage and reciting Langston Hughes. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh, I eat well, and I grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody will dare tell me to eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed, though I too am America. It was something about those words. I was a kid, but the notion of it, I have to go sit in the kitchen different from you? The words of that poem never left me. It was the first poem I memorized, first poem I performed, and the first poem I required my students to memorize as well. So something about that poem resonated with me. And then there was a book by Eloise Greenfield that I still read to this day, and it's titled with my name, Honey, I Love. And other collected works. So this poet was talking about all the things she loved, and she ended this book with, and honey, I love you. Oh my goodness. I was sold. Hook, sink, I was done. So I read those two pieces and they just resonated life to me. They were real. And that's why I can still read those particular two pieces every day. So I may not be the scholarly MFA type of poet laureate that I've met and others across the country, but I read and take residence in pieces that have life like that for me. And so it was always life. It was always real. It was always tangible. So it was more than something in a book for me. it was real life, what I saw, what I felt, what I knew to be true in my heart.
That's interesting that you would point out that you've been able to achieve that without that credential or validation from the academic community, but rather the fact that poetry is just a part of you. It's a part of every fiber of your being.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's, go ahead.
I think that holds true with pretty much anything you want to do, because for so long I would look at poet laureates on the state level, particularly, and look at that Master's of Fine Arts and say, I don't have a master's in anything. But I think when your tenure in what you do validates you, you don't need the validation of those other pieces that are great to have. And I respect academia, 100%. But I also respect people's life courses that sometimes validate the artwork. The passion validates the art. And so in this case, I'm grateful for a life that has been validated by art. And art has given this life meaning and purpose. And so I'm just grateful now for this position that helps me even get that out on a broader level.
Yes. And I think, too, that paradigm kind of reaches over into other genres of art, because there are people who have been creating art for a lifetime but never had to go to school to do it. They just do what they do. And in the greater community, specifically the academic community, they don't receive the same accolades or praise that other poets do or other artists do. They end up being squeezed out of exhibitions, and they don't get the same opportunities, but their work has the same credibility or validity as any other artist. So it's really heartwarming to hear that you've been able to achieve this honor despite the fact that academic background is not there. We just have a few moments before we go to the break, but you said something about your name. And I've always been fascinated with the fact that your name is what it is. And I was just wondering how that came about.
Well, I have a twin sister, and her name is Sugar. So clearly you can't have sugar without honey, honey without sugar. Just wouldn't make sense. So no, seriously, I really have a twin sister. And so I had young parents, and they wanted to name their twins the sweetest thing they could imagine. And that is my real name. My real name is Honey, and I love it. It has always worked for me. I am Bell from the Bell family, and Bey is the Moorish part of who I am. So it's a hyphenated name. But I've always, people ask in school, were you teased? Well, I've heard it all. Honey Bell, Honey Smacks, Honey this, Honey that. But it all still goes with the sweetness in the front of it. So I choose to still take it as beautiful. I always have my whole life. Appreciate my name. What's in a name? Shakespeare asked. Everything for me. And so I love the name that God chose for me.
All right. Well, the name is Honey Bell-Bey. She is the Poet Laureate of Cuyahoga County, and she's our guest on Open Door Cleveland, right here on 95.9 FM, WOVU, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station. We'll be right back after these messages.
Crazy T, what are you doing?
What you mean?
Why are you about to throw that out the window?
I'm saying I'm done with it. I didn't want to junk your car up. I was looking out for you.
No, I'm sure we'll make it stop. You could throw it out of a trash can or something. In fact, wait, I got a little bag I usually keep, right here.
I'm saying, is it that big a deal? The window's right here.
Of course. This is our community. We live here. This is our community.
Yeah, I know. You're right.
Why would you want to junk up our own community?
Yeah, I didn't know you was going to get all, whatever, civil rights on it or whatever. You're right. My bad. I didn't know.
You should be in the uproar yourself, too, when you see people do it.
You know what? I'm going to do better, because, this is my community. I got to live here. You're right.
We all need to do better. Don't litter.
Littering is a serious offense, punishable by fines up to $500 and or 60 days in jail.
Don't litter. This is your community. Brought to you by WOVU 95.9 BBC Community Radio. Our voices united.
I'm Sophie Absolutely.
My name is Ken Hawkins Jr.
I'm Love Lachey XO.
This is Darnell Carter, the family man.
This is Vanessa Whiting.
This is Erica Abrams.
This is Reggie Hayman.
Yo, what it do is your girl DJ Coco Z, and you rocking out to WOVU 95.9 FM.
We're back on Open Door Cleveland. Our guest is Honey Bell-Bey, Cuyahoga County's Poet Laureate, and we just finished talking about how she got her name, twin sister, named Sugar, and I'm sure that folks call your name, and there's no way that they can insult you with a name like that. You created an entity called the Distinguished Gentleman of the Spoken Word. Can you talk about how that came into being and why specifically you chose to deal with young men?
Well, thank you. The Distinguished Gentleman of Spoken Word started almost in a few years. It'll be 20 years ago. I was out of college and back here, and things at that time in the Huff neighborhood were it was pretty rough. Superior St. Clair, we had a lot of neighboring street gangs issues, or we'll say gang issues. And so a lot of the guys were just hanging out, and I lived in the same community I worked in. And basically I tell people it was selfish. I was like, you guys need to stop hanging out on my yard. We need to do something. And so, but it literally just happened pretty much like that, and asking them, what do you want to do? Can you all come in and rap with me and write poetry with me? I was like, man, this lady is crazy and this is corny. But they came. And then more came. And then we were writing together. And then before you knew it, we were doing little bitty shows in our own community. And then in the middle of it, we're now doing shows halftime for this new basketball player who's coming to Cleveland from Akron. I'm excited. So now I have these guys hooked. You get to perform halftime at a Cavs game and meet this new basketball phenom everybody's talking about. I now have provided you something bigger than the streets. I have, without even thinking. And that's the key to it all. Can I give you something bigger that gives you that self-efficacy because it's already in you, and it becomes so much bigger? So the poetry is really, it's the byproduct. It's not really the product at all. I can take poetry and transfer it into tap dance. I can take tap dance and transfer it into baseball. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter that it was poetry. It mattered that I had something structured and big for you guys to do. And it became for guys because that's who I saw. That's who was hanging out at the time. So I saw need, and poetry made sense. And they bought onto it, and they've just hung out with me ever since. Cohort after cohort of them. And so I'm grateful. It's been one of the greatest blessings of my life, truly, to have formed something young in my 20s and to still have it with me now. It's truly been a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Of the young men that you've worked with over the years, are there any that stand out when you look back at, their participation in what you've done and what they've moved on to?
Oh, yeah, there's so many. One that comes to mind is a young man who went off to Morehouse and did great, just excelled through Morehouse. And now I will be calling him Dr. Posey very soon as he finishes his PhD. Last year, I took some young men down to Morehouse. I am a graduate of a HBCU, so while I support kids going on to any academic goal that they set for themselves or career, if it's not college, I am a big proponent of HBCUs. And so Morehouse, Howard, those schools become choices for many of my young men. So while I took the group down, this graduate met us now with his family on the campus. And what he offered them that was supposed to happen in the summer of 2020 was to come back and spend the summer in Atlanta through a technology program. He's in IT that he was running, and they'd spend time there on campus and time working with his company. So he spent a great portion of the year developing this program and writing funding. And what he said to me that really blessed me, he said, Miss Honey, you have done this so long. You can take the summer of 2020 off. I got it for you. Wow. So to have a young man say that to me, and that was supposed to be this summer. Clearly, COVID has paused most of those type plans for my performance group. Everything was pretty much paused, but he sticks out in my mind because not only did he go on to reach the goals that he set for himself, he was willing to say, now you take a rest and I'll take the torch. Gladly, brother. Gladly. Take it. Gladly. I was excited at the
Yes.
notion of turning that over and doing no work with young men in the summer, but COVID did something different with that.
Yeah. So since you brought it up, I have to ask you about it. How have you adapted to life with COVID now and virtually a slowdown or a shutdown of what you had been doing before?
So COVID instituted a redirection of everything I was doing. And so the dreams I had for this year of Poet Laureateship, certainly most of them will have to be achieved in next year because COVID did not allow for any of them to happen. And so virtually, instead of out performing in front of people, we have just transferred most things into a training and not a performance time at all, which is good too. So you can edify your own spirit in reading and studying. I've done a lot of virtual class for little people to kind of fight summer slide. So I've done a lot of classes that are just fun and enriching, because what I didn't want to see was kids get into a depression because they were in this quarantine state. So everything from virtual cooking to virtual art classes. I teach several classes a day. That was never the plan. I've never started a food pantry before COVID, started a massive one. This day in particular, I've served 570 people, a massive food piece because of COVID. So everything changed. And it was good though, because you should check your motives as an artist. If your artistry is about you and it's no bigger than you, that's not art at all. That's insanity and vanity. So my art had to take a back seat totally, including my performance group, so I can make sure basic needs were taken care of for people. And that's art. That's art, the art of loving people. That's what it became for me and still is. This season hasn't ended. We're still in it, and that's okay. When it's time for the stage, when it's time for that, the poet will have tons of material to mentally unload from all that COVID has weighed down, and it has been a weight, to be honest.
Okay. So your work is not limited to what you do with young men. I also see that you are involved in something called Power Over Emotional Trauma to help women travail over their experiences. Could you talk about that particular aspect of your mission?
Yes, Poet, or POET, Power Over Emotional Trauma. It is the platform of the Poet Laureate. So it is what I created that is constantly evolving for women to express their trauma, for women to express their addictions, and all do it through the power of spoken word. And so now that piece, we were able to have several face-to-face pieces in January and February before COVID hit. And now in the month of August, September, October, November, we will transfer that into virtual pieces for women as we're getting all their curriculum and books together. They were also supposed to have 2 retreats fully paid for under the Poet Laureate at a beautiful, beautiful cabin, all about writing and healing. We don't have to take it out on the world, but you know what? Usually we don't take it out on the world. We take it out on ourselves. We don't have to take it out on ourselves. We can heal together through that trauma. And usually you can see it. You see the ones that we hold on to it. You see it in the weight we carry physically. So, I put myself in that healing process too through poetry. You see it through the anger that we have sometimes with other people. And so, the whole point of power over emotional trauma is to help teach women you can travail over what happened to you. It happened to you, but it's not you. You are not defined by the trauma of your past, whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah, just to speak to the significance of trauma, because many people don't realize that things happen to them in their childhood that they carry into their adulthood. And because there's such a stigma on mental health and treatment for mental health issues, many people don't get the help that could really help them get over some of the things that have happened to them so long ago. So it's a good thing to hear that you're talking about helping people recover from trauma. I know in my own family there are folks who have been traumatized by certain events that happen in their lives, and friends that I have who have gone through, serving in war and having PTSD and suffering that trauma and so forth and so on. So to have someone confront trauma head on is really it's significant to me, because I think we need more emphasis on mental health as well as physical health.
Absolutely. And I think that's the piece, hopefully, that softens the stigma, is that the group is held in the fashion of poetry. So it's fun. It's light. We do painting poetry. It's, these pieces that we talk about our trauma, but we talk about it in a way that eases you into maybe saying, maybe you need to see a therapist. Let's write about it together as a first step and talk about that trauma. But then beyond that, there's nothing wrong with saying, I need help. Because if we told the truth, you're right. It's in all of our families. All of our families, somewhere, somehow, we've experienced, and we won't even get into it from a genetic piece of just the trauma we hold from the Middle Passage. So we are a traumatized people. But what do we do with that? We produce art, we produce music, we produce all this life-saving energy that, that changes the world. But it's up to us. We also can allow it to kill us. It's your choice. You can stay stuck right there or allow it to transform. And I just have made a decision. I spent my 10 years being stuck in the pain of my trauma. And I just don't choose to do that. I choose to breathe life into everything I touch to the best of my ability. And what I see as death in myself, to not allow it to infect anybody else. Because trauma can be, you see traumatized communities, traumatized children, traumatized educational systems. And what do you do with that? I just choose to attack it bite by bite. That's what it's going to be my goal really for the rest of the year, even on a broader level, in a year that has been traumatizing. The year has been traumatic, just with all the unexpected changes. What do you do with that so you're not consumed by it, and you're not making the mistake of saying 2020 was a wasted year when it wasn't? It's a beautiful year.
Yes. Powerful words from the Poet Laureate of Cuyahoga County. She's our guest on Open Door Cleveland. Her name is Honey Bell-Bey, and we'll be back with more right after this.
What can you do in the battle against COVID-19? Your first task, wear a mask, protect yourself and others. Armor up, armor up. Give those hands a 20-second shower with soap and water. Armor up, armor up. Give others space 6 feet just in case. Armor up, armor up. Get good nutrition, ingest for digestion. Armor up, armor up. Vitamin C, D3, and more. Armor up, armor up. Elderberries, zinc, and echinacea from the store. Armor up, armor up. Get some fresh air. Go climb some stairs. Armor up, armor up. Let go of stress. Make sure you rest. Armor up, armor up. Your breath is the key to life. Strengthen your immune system, follow the guidelines, and win the battle against COVID-19. Armor up, armor up.
I count, you count, your grandparents count, newborns count, and everyone you've seen today counts. If you've lived in the country only a few weeks or for your entire life, you count. If you live alone, with family, with friends, or with people you don't know all that well, you all count. Everyone in Cleveland counts. And everyone living in your household on April 1st needs to get counted as part of the 2020 census. An accurate count informs how billions of dollars in federal funding gets distributed annually for health clinics, after-school activities, road repairs, and hundreds of other programs. Shape your future. Start here. Visit 2020census.gov.
You're listening to Open Door Cleveland with Vince Robinson. Our guest is Honey Bell-Bey, and we were just talking about the impact of trauma and the need for us to address that trauma and to heal ourselves both from the epigenetic trauma that we've experienced and the real life things that we've experienced in our conscious lives. I'm noting that you are working with the Cleveland Urban Minority Alcoholism Drug Abuse Outreach Program, known to many as UMADOP. Could you talk about your connection to that organization and your work within that?
Yes, UMADOP has been a staple in the community. There are a UMADOP office in every major city in the state of Ohio. I am a certified alcohol, tobacco, and other drug professional. So up under that umbrella of UMADOP, I train other people in drug prevention. I work with young people in prevention in the schools, after school programs, summer programs. So usually some people don't recognize that I have this other umbrella because I do so much, but it is the base of what I do. And the agency itself provides services for women through our Mary's House program, women who are coming out of incarceration, women who are dealing with addiction. We have marijuana education programs, reentry programs for men. So a plethora of activities for, the overall mission of the agency, which is to improve the quality of life in the African American community. We're on 79th, 1215 East 79th, and we've been here for about 30 years.
Okay. I remember visiting there a few years back. There was a group that was operating out of that space. I think they were called the Black Butterflies, and it was a group of seamstresses. Are they still doing what they do there?
Absolutely, and obviously been extremely busy in this season, working remotely, but extremely busy in this season making masks.
Okay. And what caused you to enter this as a profession? If you're a certified prevention specialist, that means that you had to get some type of education in it. Talk about your career in your professional life.
So my education is not in a behavioral health. Ironically, my background is in broadcast production technology. That's what my degree is in. So I worked for quite a while before making the full-time connection back to Cleveland. I was back and forth to Florida and Atlanta, working at the CNN affiliate there. I covered the 1996 Olympic Games. I ran camera and audio and commentary control. So I was in technology for quite a while. However, my passion, something was wrong. I could run the morning news at the NBC affiliate in Winter Park, Florida, but I can do it in my sleep with pajamas on and not connect with people. I can run the cameras by a machine. Something was wrong. I needed to connect with people. It's my spirit, it's who I am. Even as an introvert, I needed to connect with people. And so kind of landed in drug prevention through several other agencies I was working with before. I had always had a part-time job with something with youth. So I was always at the Stuart Marchman Center in Florida for chemical dependency. I just saw the need of people who were either reaching the end of their rope or not knowing how to find creative ways to wrap themselves out of it. And so to me, it was a seamless merger. How do you take what's in you? You have all these theories outside of you, but what's in you? Can I help you pull out what's in you, please? Can I pull it out? And so people were listening, like, yeah, what you see? Tell me what's in me. And so it became my mission almost. I want to help you through the worst season of your life, or so you think. But I want to help you with what's already in you. So, in fact, I want you to help you. And so if I can teach people how to help themselves, and even better on the prevention end, if I can prevent you before you even get there, I was ready. I was ready and excited, and went and took the state level exam, passed it the first time. Many people take it many times. So, just studied all the theory and passed it, and now train people all over the state of Ohio for our Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services Board. And I'm excited to also, be a master trainer for them.
That's amazing that you had that background in broadcast production, and have you completely walked away from it?
I have. I try to still keep it wet, so to speak, with the things that I like to do with poetry and making, videos here and there. But technology has changed so much since then. When I ran the radio station, for example, we were splicing, with the razor blade and taping back together. Now I look at editing programs and I might do a little something just to entertain myself. But now I see the advancement in technology far beyond what I want to, get into. So,
yeah. It really is amazing because I went to college for broadcasting as well. My degree is in telecommunications, and I remember splicing tape. I remember the very first portable video recorder we had. It was literally the size of a reel-to-reel tape deck, and the engineer wore that tape deck on his back with a harness, and he had a camera plugged into it with a 3-foot cord, and it shot black and white video. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So to go from that to people walking around with smartphones and doing Facebook Live and doing all that sophisticated production with something the size of your hand is it's unbelievable. You can shoot video and edit it on your phone and produce a video without leaving your seat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
It's crazy when you think about it. But on the other hand, by eliminating all those extras, it allows a lot of content to be created and produced. So I guess it's a double-edged sword. Now we have a lot more voices that are being heard versus the old days when you watch 3, 5, 8, and 19, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. So what are you involved with in terms of Umadot right now? Are there any new initiatives or any new developments that you want to talk about there?
Well, we have right now, again, the main office pretty much is still closed due to the COVID piece, but we've had virtual academies for young people as well throughout the whole COVID piece. So that's going on. I put the food pantry that I'm doing directly under. So we're giving out food every week and just continuing to serve the community in this new temporary normal that we find ourselves in. So again, the best laid plans of mice and men. We had so many plans for this summer, so many outdoor festivals and things we were planning to do. But we do have a Mars initiative, and that's dealing with the opiate epidemic and giving out Narcan kits and training people on how to use Narcan is a big one. How to save people's lives from an opiate overdose has become one of our major initiatives this year. I'm not afraid, but I'm just hopeful for what we will see when this pandemic is all over. For those who have quarantined, for those who have your social life has changed, your employment life has changed. What have you done to battle the loneliness or the depression? So it's just going to be interesting to see what addiction numbers look like next year or close to the end of this year.
Yeah, you would kind of have to think that things being as they are would push folks into addiction because they're having difficulty in coping with the circumstances that we're facing. Have you noticed any kind of upsurge in activity or demand for your services as a result of that?
Not directly with the Narcan. So we pretty much just been hitting so many places in greater numbers. So on the prevention side, how can we just make sure you have it in your hand? If you know you have an active user in your family, it's kind of been the conversation. You have an active user in your family, you need to have Narcan on hand because you never know until you know, and you never need it until you need it. So you need to have it because it could save a life just that fast. I think we'd have our head in the sand to believe that people are just going to pop back from this major change, when if we were honest with ourselves on the service end or the service delivery end, ourselves, we see the difference that the weight of this pandemic has caused. So I think to just, to be vigilant and just to be ahead of it as much as you can, when in some cases you don't even know what it is and what direction it's traveling in. So, the mission has just become, how do I put it in as many hands as possible, similar to supplying food needs.
I'm curious as we talk about the so-called opiate crisis. Is the opioid crisis as significant in the Black community as it is in others? Because, there, for whatever reason, people have it in their minds that, Black folks are the ones that are using crack and then white folks use other drugs. Is it the same in our community in terms of the abuse of opioids?
The rise is the same, because what happens, we become a very experimental type people. I mean, I remember the day you could have never told me we dip anything in embalming fluid, or we put PCP in anything to make it wet. Weed was just weed. Weed was weed, and that was that. Not to minimize weed, but you never think we make wet. The same thing you're seeing with fentanyl. It's the same thing with crack. It's just a little bit. It's laced. It's just trying to chase a greater high. You just need a little bit. So you don't need heroin, man. We need a little bit of this fentanyl. We need a little bit. And that's how we get on. And yes, we are seeing deaths increase according to, reports that are out.
Mm-hmm. How would you approach encouraging people to take advantage of your services when they are not inclined to acknowledge that they even have a problem?
So I think with anything, that beats somebody over the head has always been the wrong approach. I like to sit the information out there and pray that you take the steps that's needed, and then remind myself of times where I necessarily didn't make the best decisions either. And some things had to run their course before I made the decision to make changes in different directions in my life. I would try to definitely convince a person that this is already such a short journey. When you think about it, this is a vapor. You breathe and this thing is over, to make the best out of life, and not just with scare tactics, but the quality of life. How much of life do you lose because you blacked out, or you can't get the job you want because you can't, drop a clean urine? Just those pieces. I'm not telling you, I'm using marijuana as an example there, but I'm not telling you you're going to smoke this weed and you're going to die tomorrow. That's a scare tactic, and it's a lie. It's a flat out lie. You're probably not going to die. However, do you play with the risk of your life like that? Do you play with, I'm going to take this hit of this crack that might be laced? I really don't know. I really don't know what's out there. It could have a little fentanyl in it. It might. You don't take the risk with your life like that. Your life got to have a better value than that. And so that's pretty much my piece. How can I help you see value in your life? Because it comes down to not just chasing the high. It comes down to the value you see in yourself. When you see yourself as more valuable, you treat yourself more valuable. Okay.
Honey Bell-Bey right here on Open Door Cleveland with Vince Robinson. You're listening to 95.9 FM WOVU, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Angela here at WOVU 95.9. We are a Burton Bell Carr community radio station. Since 1990, Burton Bell Carr Development has been empowering residents, revitalizing blighted and unserved communities in Cleveland Central, Kinsman, and surrounding areas. Burton Bell Carr Development offers community planning, real estate development, empowerment services, connecting communities, area businesses with services needed to succeed. Help us build a brighter community by volunteering. For more information, visit us at bbcdevelopment.org or call us at 216-341-1455. Remember, we are WOVU 95.9, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station, streaming live on WOVU.org.
Open Door Cleveland looks at the lives of people here and abroad, navigating the realms of art, culture, and society. I'm Vince Robinson. Tune in for inspired conversation with an array of guests and subject matter experts right here on 95.9 FM WOVU, Monday mornings at 11. Stream us live at WOVU.org or enjoy us live by purchasing the WOVU app from your favorite app store. Open Door Cleveland, Monday mornings at 11 on 95.9 FM WOVU, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
I count, you count, your grandparents count, newborns count, and everyone you've seen today counts. If you've lived in the country only a few weeks or for your entire life, you count. If you live alone, with family, with friends, or with people you don't know all that well, you all count. Everyone in Cleveland counts. And everyone living in your household on April 1st needs to get counted as part of the 2020 census. An accurate count informs how billions of dollars in federal funding gets distributed annually for health clinics, after-school activities, road repairs, and hundreds of other programs. Shape your future. Start here. Visit 2020census.gov.
You're listening to Open Door Cleveland. Our guest today is Cuyahoga County's Poet Laureate, Honey Bell-Bey, and we have been exploring her connection with Umadop and talking about addiction and ways to get beyond it. I want to shift gears and just talk in general and just think about some things that I know you have experienced. Last year, you took a trip to the continent of Africa, and you were involved in a tour, and I'm sure that you observed a lot while you were there, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share that experience with our listening audience.
Yes, it was my third. It was actually my third trip to Africa. My first voyage was to Senegal, and then my last two trips were both to Ghana. I think it is imperative for every African American to make the voyage at least once. It's my goal to go every year, but I can remember that first trip in Senegal and being on Gorée Island, just to be able to make the connection back to who I am and where I came from, was life changing. And it wasn't something I was shocked about. I knew I would do it. It was always something. It wasn't an option. Kind of like making the homage to Mecca for Muslims. It was something I knew I had to do. I'm one of the fortunate ones, to be honest, who I had African American history teachers in high school, at Shaw High School in East Cleveland, that already prepared me. So it was not like some people who say, I never learned that in school. How is that possible? I did not have that experience at all. I had teachers who had already built up in me and built up in us many of the things I was looking to see. So I was looking to see and feel exactly what I felt both in Senegal and in Ghana, just being in the village, in the schools. There's just the beauty of the continent as a whole, and even the differences in what you see in the different countries, just the landscape, the people, my mostly, if I were to really hone in on my experiences there with the people, the food, wonderful. But the people was absolutely wonderful. Just being able to, like, for example, walking down the street in my last day there in Ghana, and I stayed over a little bit when our tour had ended. I was still there in a separate community, and I took a walk, and I saw a lady with the pedestal making fufu, and she was really working hard at this. Now I can't. It's a heavy. Imagine a heavy, for those who don't know, a heavy, humongous stick, and they're pounding and pounding and pounding. And so she invited me, Queen, come join us. Pure stranger, and I'm trying to lift it. They're laughing because I can't lift it. So it's heavy, and I am three of them easily, but I'm struggling to get it done. And so just that example, and they, then afterwards they said, honey, you helped us make it. Join us to eat, and just like that, just neighbors, just family. So those type of experiences like that, I take above doing what we would call the traditional tourist type things. it's the stories, and those, time you spend with people.
Yes. So how was the fufu?
I am not a fan. I've never been a fan. I had it the first time I was there as well. But you're talking about a person who I also don't like dumplings. So I don't like anything with that consistency. But one of the things I have always done, just like in Senegal, when we sat on the floor and ate together out of the same plate, I love and respect culture, so I always try it. So I'm not going to another country looking for McDonald's. I'm not, which is the most absurd thing on planet Earth. So I'm going to try every type of cuisine wherever I am, and respect the energy and the love that goes into the making. It was so much going into the making of it that I respected the process. Surely. I wasn't a fan.
Okay. And what did you see as the differences between Senegal and Ghana?
Well, I mean, that was one, even right there, just the notion of eating on the floor together. But there's so many differences even in cities, like in Ghana, from city to city was totally different. Like in Kumasi, and the busyness of people, the busy always. One of the major differences, I would say, and I don't know if it's between those two countries or between the United States. Everyone in Senegal that morning, Senegal being really a Islamic country and Ghana being more of a Christian country, just being able to hear prayer that early in the morning, the beautiful sounds of a country praying together is what it sounded like early in the morning. Competing with the roosters is this prayer that was ringing out in the village I was staying in Senegal. It was just one beautiful sound. And on top of the hill was a church. And so I remember on Christmas Day walking up that hill to church for me, but it not even interrupting the sounds of people making salat and prayer in the middle of the day too. Oh my goodness. Just the beauty of that. Then flip over to Ghana, seeing all of the Adinkra symbols that I studied about for years, seeing them on cars and doorposts, but at the same time seeing images of Jesus as they portrayed it. That some of those differences were mind-blowing to me, that I'd almost need to study a little further to really understand, seeing cars littered with that.
Yes. And it's really amazing when you see how Christians and Muslims get along so well. I mean, when you're in the village, you hear that prayer at 6 or 7 in the morning, or whenever it is. You hear that in the morning, and then, maybe that later afternoon, there might be a church service going somewhere in the village, and the sounds fill up the village. So, but you don't really see friction because everybody gets along so well.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The other image that sticks out in my mind that I'll never forget is the morning, and this is my first time in Africa. So I'm in Senegal, and this little boy in the village, you have a beautiful home like the one we're staying in, massive, over the top elegance. And then there's a little boy in the same gated community who's building his house. So he started his house when we arrived, and when we left, his house was done. I watched a kid build his house. So the notion, he took sheets of metal and cinder block. He left in the morning for school, and this young man built his house, and we watched that. So the notion that Africans are lazy, that was interrupted. If it was in my mind, it wasn't. But if it was in my mind, it would have been interrupted that first trip, because everyone was headed somewhere. And in Africa, that's the first thing that strikes me. Everyone is going somewhere. You're going to the market to sell something. You're going to build something. You're going to do something. Everyone was bartering and working together and working. So the whole, stereotypes were lazy. I don't know where that possibly could have been derived from, because neither in Senegal or in Ghana did I see that, not even an inch of it.
Yeah, I can completely relate. I mean, you leave the airport and you see vendors out in the street carrying just about anything you can imagine, from steering wheel covers to toilet paper to, magic markers. I mean, whatever you think of, you don't have to go to the store. The store comes to you.
Exactly.
And it's just like you're saying, everybody is doing something. I mean, I remember waking up at like 6:30 in the morning. The cock is crowing, and I look out the window, and I see a boy sitting on the front step of the house that he's living in, working at 6:30 in the morning, not playing video games, not watching TV. You know, he's probably 6 or 7 years old, and he's out there working. So that whole notion of us being lazy, I don't know where that comes from, but you don't go to Africa and see lazy folk.
Not at all. Not at all.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So you say you have plans to go back. I'm assuming it's as soon as they open up the borders again?
You said it correctly. I said it correctly.
Yeah.
I would have gone this year for sure. It was on the docket. It was in the plan. But you know, everything happens as it should. But I will definitely be there in 2021. Hopefully things will go back to normal. And eventually, Ghana is the place I intend to retire. So I want to go as often as possible.
Okay. And what would you say to those who have reservations about going?
So I think your reservations are based on an unfounded fear, and at least go once. At least. That'll settle that. You may have had reservations about a restaurant you wanted to go to too until you tried it out. At least in this lifetime, you should not leave Earth without stepping foot on it. And if you step foot on the continent once, I will have the conversation with you again. But it makes no sense not to go once. The beauty, and it's not expensive. You can put aside $100, $200 a month and fund your trip to Africa.
Okay. I hope folks are listening to that, because I have plans of living in Ghana at some point too. I think that's the place that I've settled on in terms of where in Africa I would live, and it's probably because I've been there more than anywhere else, and I just feel so at home there. But yeah, it's definitely something everyone should do at least once. I'm sure that it will completely change your perception of what things are like on the other side of the world. Back on this side of things, I just want to get your vision as we wrap up our conversation today about your future plans for the county with relation to poetry and your poet laureateship.
Well, the number one thing I want to start working on in the next 30 days is putting out a miniature grant for people who simply need help getting their book published. You just need the funds. It could be $800 difference between you getting published and you have that book tangible in your hand and you sitting on your words. So that's first. I want to be able to provide that opportunity to 8 people who just need the support to publish their book. And then on a broader scale, even to provide the channels for people to be able to distribute those books, distribute their words. And how do you do that? So to open up the channels to support that, and an immediate turnaround, to not do to people what systems sometimes do to arts programs. You want me to write 5 pages and then give me $2. You want me to write 22 pages and then give me $3. No, just tell me the title of your book, what you're trying to do, how I can support you, and let me write you a check, go publish your book, send me and sign me a copy when you get it. That's pretty much what I want to do. And then on a broader scale, I'd like to transform an entire street into a poetry district, an entire abandoned street, my hometown of East Cleveland. That's a broad dream, but that's, it's kind of what I want to do.
Okay. Well, we certainly wish you the best of success in your efforts. I can see that you not only are involved in poetry, but also literacy as well. If somebody wants to take advantage of what you're doing or they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get to you?
They can certainly follow me on Facebook at Honey Bell-Bey. They can also pull up the new website, which is poetshoney.com. poetshoney.com.
Okay. Well, it has been my absolute pleasure to have this conversation with you, and I hope that the folks out there listening to WOVU have a better understanding and knowledge of who Honey Bell-Bey is. We appreciate the work that you're doing, and we congratulate you on your success, and we look forward to seeing things come into fruition. You've been listening to Open Door Cleveland right here on FM 95.9 WOVU. Thanks for joining us, Honey Bell-Bey.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, do everything you can to have a great day. Peace.